Welcome, take a quiet breath. Today, we are going to walk through a large idea, an idea that has been spoken about at the highest levels of government, the idea of ending the income tax and replacing the Internal Revenue Service with something called the External Revenue Service. We will move slowly, we will stay with the facts, we will look at the numbers, we will look at the history, and we will look at what this would mean for ordinary people. There is no rush. Let us begin. For more than 100 years, the United States has collected most of its federal revenue through the income tax. People who work pay a portion of what they earn. Businesses pay a portion of what they earn. That money flows to the Internal Revenue Service. In recent years, the individual income tax alone has brought in roughly $2.4 to $2.6 trillion each year. That is a very large number. It is the single biggest source of money the federal government receives. Now imagine a different system. Imagine that the government stopped collecting that income tax. Imagine that the Internal Revenue Service no longer existed in its present form. And imagine that the money instead came from tariffs. Tariffs are taxes placed on goods that enter the country from other nations. When a company brings in products from overseas, it pays a tax at the border. That tax is the tariff. The proposal is to create a new agency. It would be called the External Revenue Service. Its job would be to collect those tariffs and other trade-related fees. The hope expressed by supporters is that these external payments could grow large enough to replace the income tax entirely. That is the core idea. Let us pause here for a moment. The United States once ran on tariffs. Before the modern income tax was created in 1913, the federal government relied heavily on customs duties and tariffs. That was the older model. The country was smaller. Trade was different. The needs of government were smaller. After the income tax arrived, the system changed. The federal government grew, wars were fought, social programs expanded, and the income tax became the foundation. Now some voices want to return toward that older model. They argue that taxing foreign goods is better than taxing the earnings of American workers. They say it encourages companies to make products inside the United States. They say it reduces the trade deficit. The trade deficit is the difference between what the United States buys from other countries and what other countries buy from the United States. In recent years, that difference has often been around $900 billion. The United States sends more dollars abroad than it receives back through the sale of its own goods. Those dollars leave the country. Supporters of higher tariffs want to reverse that flow. They want more production to happen at home. They want more jobs in manufacturing and related industries to stay in the United States. That is one side of the argument. There is another side. Tariffs raise the cost of imported goods. When the cost of materials rises, companies often pass those higher costs to customers. Prices for everyday products can increase. Clothes, electronics, household items, many things that people buy regularly. If prices rise across many categories, the overall cost of living can climb. That is inflation pressure. Some businesses may absorb part of the cost, others cannot. The result is a trade-off. More domestic production on one side, higher prices on the other side. Both things can happen at the same time. Let us look at the numbers more carefully. In the year before recent large tariff increases, the federal government collected about $79 billion from tariffs. After the increases, that number rose to roughly $264 billion in one later year. That is a clear increase. It is still only a fraction of the $2.6 trillion that come from the income tax. To replace the income tax, the tariff revenue would need to grow many times larger than it is now. Some officials have spoken of hundreds of billions more. Others have spoken of the possibility of even greater sums if tariffs are applied broadly and at high rates. Independent analyses have been more cautious. They note that when tariffs rise high enough, companies change their behavior. They may shift production. They may find new suppliers. They may reduce the volume of goods that cross the border. When the volume of imports falls, the amount of tariff revenue can also fall. This is sometimes called the melting ice cube effect. The revenue base itself can shrink if the policy succeeds in bringing production home. There is also the question of who actually pays the tariff. The legal obligation falls on the importer. The importer is usually an American company. That company pays the tariff to the government. The foreign seller lowers its price or the American company raises its selling price is a separate economic question. In practice, the cost is often shared. But the money does not come directly from foreign governments in the way some descriptions suggest. It comes through the commercial transaction. This distinction matters. Now let us consider the larger flow of money. When Americans buy goods from other countries, dollars leave the United States. Those dollars do not disappear. Foreign holders of dollars often invest them back into the United States. They buy United States Treasury securities. They buy other financial assets. They buy real estate and businesses. This recycling of dollars has helped keep interest rates lower than they might otherwise have been. It has also meant that a significant portion of United States government debt is held by foreign entities. If the trade deficit shrinks, fewer dollars leave the country. Fewer dollars may then return as purchases of Treasury securities. The demand for those securities could change. Interest rates on government debt could move higher. Because Treasury rates influence many other rates in the economy, the cost of borrowing for households and businesses could also change. Again, there is a trade-off. Less dependence on foreign capital on one side, possibly higher borrowing costs on the other side. These are not simple questions. They involve complex systems that have developed over decades. A sudden large shift would affect many parts of the economy at once. Manufacturing regions might see new investment and new jobs. Regions that rely on imported consumer goods might see higher prices. Workers in certain industries could benefit. Workers in other industries could face higher costs for the things they need. The federal budget itself would face a major transition. The income tax is reliable and broad-based. It rises and falls with economic activity, but it is deeply embedded. Tariff revenue is more concentrated and more sensitive to trade volumes and to the responses of other nations. Other nations can also impose their own tariffs in return. Trade relationships can become more strained. Supply chains that have been built over many years can be disrupted. All of these possibilities exist at the same time. Let us step back even further. The desire to reduce the burden of the income tax is not new. Many people feel the current tax code is complicated. They feel it takes too much from their earnings. They feel the system is difficult to navigate. Simplifying the way the government collects revenue is an understandable goal. The question is whether tariffs can carry that entire load. History shows that pure tariff-based systems worked when government was smaller and when the economy was different. Today, the federal government spends far more than it did a century ago. Social Security, Medicare, defense, interest on the existing debt. These are large ongoing commitments. Replacing the main source of revenue for those commitments would require either much higher tariff rates or a significant reduction in spending or some combination of both. None of those paths is simple. Supporters of the External Revenue Service idea say the transition can happen gradually. They say the first step is to strengthen the collection of existing trade revenues. They say the next step is to use reciprocal tariffs so that other countries face the same barriers the United States faces. They say the long-term goal is a system in which Americans keep more of what they earn and foreign producers contribute more when they sell into the American market. Critics say the arithmetic does not close. They say the revenue gap is too large. They say the inflationary effects would be real and lasting. They say the disruption to global supply chains would create new problems, even as it solves others. Both perspectives contain parts of the truth. The plan as described would represent one of the largest changes in American fiscal policy in generations. It would touch every household through prices. It would touch every business through costs and competition. It would touch the government's ability to fund its commitments. It would touch the role of the dollar in the world. None of this happens overnight. Creating a new agency requires legislation. Changing the tax code requires legislation. Raising or lowering tariffs involves both executive authority and congressional power, depending on the exact legal path used. The process is slow by design. Public debate is part of that process. Understanding the numbers is part of that process. Seeing the trade-offs clearly is part of that process. As you listen to this, you may already have a strong view. That is natural. The purpose of this narration is not to tell you what to think. The purpose is to lay out the structure of the idea so that the thinking can be clearer. The income tax has been the primary engine of federal revenue for over a century. Tariffs were the primary engine before that. The proposal on the table is to reverse the emphasis once again. Whether that reversal is possible at the scale required remains an open question. The data so far show that tariff collections have risen but remain far below income tax collections. The economic effects of higher tariffs are already being measured in higher costs for some goods and in new investment decisions by some companies. The full picture will take years to become clear. In the meantime, the Internal Revenue Service continues to operate. The income tax continues to be collected. The discussion about a different future continues. That discussion is important. Large systems do not change easily. When they do change, the consequences spread widely. People who work for wages feel it. People who run small businesses feel it. People who rely on government programs feel it. People who invest for the future feel it. All of these groups are part of the same economy. A change this large cannot be isolated to one group. It reaches everyone. Take another quiet breath. We have covered the main pieces, the historical background, the size of the income tax revenue, the size of current tariff revenue, the idea of the External Revenue Service, the trade deficit and the recycling of dollars, the possible effects on prices and jobs, the possible effects on interest rates and government borrowing, the practical difficulties of making the numbers work, the political and legal steps that would still be required. All of these pieces belong together. None of them stands alone. If the goal is truly to abolish the income tax and fund the government through external sources, then the scale of the change would be historic. If the goal is instead to use tariffs as a tool while keeping the income tax, then the conversation is different. The public statements have sometimes pointed toward the larger vision. The practical steps taken so far have been more limited. That gap between vision and implementation is where much of the current debate lives. You now have the outline. You can follow the numbers yourself as new data appears. You can watch how prices move. You can watch how companies decide where to produce. You can watch how other nations respond. The story is still unfolding. It will continue for years. Understanding it slowly and clearly is better than reacting to headlines. That is why we have taken this time. Thank you for listening all the way through. Stay curious, stay grounded in the actual numbers, and take care of yourself.
If you're on YouTube, like, subscribe, and comment. If you're on another platform, double tap to share this message. Your support means everything. Thank you.